8 minutes. That's all it took. Not 8 hours, not 8 days. 8 minutes. In less time than it takes to finish your morning coffee, thieves broke into one of Europe's most secure museums, smashed open display cases, and disappeared with royal treasures worth more than 100 million euros. But here's what makes this robbery different. They didn't steal everything. They stole only what they came for. On the morning of the 25th of November 2019, long before most of Dresden had woken up, a silent alarm echoed through one of Germany's oldest royal palaces. Within minutes, police officers arrived at the scene. The display cases had been smashed. Glass littered the polished floors. Centuries-old jewels had vanished, and the people responsible were already gone. The theft lasted just a few minutes. The consequences would last for years. Because what had been stolen wasn't simply expensive, it was irreplaceable. These weren't jewels that could be remade. For generations, they had been displayed to the public inside a museum known as the Green Vault, a collection so extraordinary that historians often described it as one of Europe's greatest treasure chambers. Its story stretched back more than 300 years. It had survived wars, political revolutions, the collapse of kingdoms, even the devastating bombing of Dresden during the Second World War. Against all odds, the treasures endured. Yet in the early hours of a cold November morning, a handful of thieves succeeded where centuries of conflict had failed. To understand what happened that morning, you first need to understand what the thieves came for. Hidden beneath Dresden's royal palace, the Green Vault houses one of the most remarkable collections of decorative art ever assembled. Its origins date back to the reign of Augustus the Strong, the Elector of Saxony and later King of Poland. He commissioned master craftsmen from across Europe to create objects unlike anything the world had seen. Gold sculpted into impossible shapes. Ivory carvings so intricate they seemed unreal. Jeweled ornaments set with diamonds, emeralds, rubies, and pearls. By the 21st century, the Green Vault had become one of Germany's most visited museums. Security reflected that importance. Reinforced display cases, motion detectors, video surveillance, multiple alarm systems. On paper, stealing from the Green Vault seemed impossible, which is precisely why the thieves chose it. It began in darkness. Just before 5 o'clock in the morning, a fire broke out beneath a nearby railway bridge. At first glance, it appeared to be little more than an electrical fire. Later, investigators concluded the blaze was no accident. It was deliberate. The fire disrupted power to systems around the museum, creating exactly the distraction the thieves needed. While emergency crews responded to the blaze, another operation was already unfolding only a short distance away. Surveillance footage later showed two hooded figures approaching the museum. They didn't rush. They didn't hesitate. They knew exactly where they were going. Instead of attempting the heavily protected main entrance, they targeted a window. Within moments, they were inside. No alarm sent them running. No security guards confronted them. Once inside, they moved with remarkable confidence. They ignored countless valuable objects. They weren't searching. They had already made their choices. One after another, they attacked the display cases with axes. The reinforced glass resisted, but only briefly. The sound of shattering glass echoed through galleries that had stood silent for centuries. The thieves reached inside, grabbing handfuls of diamonds, brooches, necklaces, and elaborate jeweled ornaments before disappearing the same way they had entered. By the time police arrived, they had vanished into the darkness. The robbery had lasted only minutes, yet the damage was impossible to measure. Many of the stolen pieces were priceless, not because of their diamonds, but because they were unique. If they were dismantled, history itself would disappear with them, because stolen money can be recovered. But once a 300-year-old royal jewel is broken apart and its gemstones sold individually, it is gone forever. For investigators, every passing hour reduced the chances of seeing those treasures intact again. The race had begun. But the thieves had one enormous advantage. They had planned every step. The detectives understood one thing before the first piece of evidence had even been collected. They were not searching for impulsive thieves. They were searching for professionals. An impulsive criminal steals what he can carry. A professional steals only what he came for. Everywhere investigators looked inside the green vault, they found signs of discipline. Entire collections remained untouched. The thieves had crossed the exhibition rooms with remarkable certainty, stopping only where the treasures they sought were displayed. Someone had studied this museum. Someone knew its layout. And someone had calculated exactly how long they could remain inside before every passing second increased the risk of capture. That calculation, investigators would later determine, was just over 8 minutes. The first breakthrough did not arrive dramatically. It rarely does. Investigations seldom advance because one brilliant detective notices what everyone else overlooked. More often, they advance because hundreds of ordinary observations gradually begin to point in the same direction. The Green Vault case proved no different. Every smashed display case became a source of evidence. Every broken edge of glass, every fiber, every abandoned tool, each was photographed, measured, and preserved. The thieves had entered believing they would leave with only jewels. Instead, they had unknowingly left behind something equally valuable: themselves. Not in body, but in trace. No criminal walks through the world without disturbing it. While forensic teams worked inside the museum, detectives examined another puzzle. How had the thieves escaped so quickly? The answer emerged only after officers discovered a burned-out Audi on the outskirts of Dresden. The vehicle had been deliberately set alight. To an ordinary observer, it looked like another abandoned car. To experienced investigators, it represented the final stage of a carefully organized operation. A stolen car attracts attention. A burned stolen car destroys evidence. A second vehicle, waiting elsewhere, restores anonymity. This was not the work of desperate individuals. It was the work of people accustomed to planning their exits long before their entrances. Weeks became months. Months became years. Public attention drifted toward newer stories. Yet behind closed doors, the investigation continued with remarkable patience. Thousands of hours of surveillance footage were reviewed, telephone records examined, financial movements analyzed. One thread after another slowly converged. It led investigators toward a family already well known to German police, the Remmo clan. For years, authorities had associated members of the extended family with organized crime. That fact alone proved nothing. Evidence must stand on its own, and piece by piece it began doing exactly that. DNA recovered from the crime scene, telephone analysis, vehicle movements. Each discovery strengthened a picture that had once seemed impossible to draw. The arrests, when they finally came, confirmed what years of patient work had gradually revealed. Properties were searched, suspects detained, evidence seized. Yet one question remained painfully unanswered. Where were the jewels? That answer emerged only after negotiations involving prosecutors and defense lawyers. In time, a substantial number of the stolen treasures were returned to the authorities. It was, by any measure, an extraordinary development, but relief quickly gave way to disappointment. The collection was no longer complete. Several pieces had been damaged. Others bore signs that gemstones had been removed or altered. The thieves believed they had stolen diamonds. In truth, they had stolen something far more fragile: history. And although much of it was recovered, history has an inconvenient habit. Once broken, it can never be restored exactly as it was.